We're good? Right on. All right. I say it every time. I want to start recording sooner because we've just missed the whole fun. So we're not wearing headphones today because Lauren Kleiman didn't want them. No, I'm kidding. Lauren, welcome to the podcast. Stoked to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very, very, very busy schedule to come down and have a chat.
I'm so happy to be here. And it's only fair that you're uncomfortable because you made me go unprepared, no questions in advance. So if I break out in hives, it's because I've never been this unprepared for anything in my entire life.
But hold on. The way I look at it is, this is your life. You know the story. Like, there's nothing to prep for. Like, we're just having a chat. So, and you had asked me, well, why now and whatever. Let me ask you, we're going to jump right in and then we'll get to a little bit more info. It's been a big couple of weeks for you.
Yeah, it has.
Why has it been such a big, crazy, rad week or two?
It hasn't even been 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been
10
a little
days
over,
or so, right?
Yeah, a little over a week. So I was voted mayor of the city of Newport Beach last week.
That is incredible.
Pretty big deal.
Huge deal.
Very exciting.
Huge deal. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to be clear.
And you're the first, by the way. You insisted we do this at the beginning of the year.
It's super exciting to listen. A big part of what this interview is about you. The other thing, big part is about, the way I look at it is a public service announcement. Like, I'm such a big proponent and believer in public service and civic engagement and volunteering, and that is you. And it has led you from some smaller roles up to a pretty significant position, being the mayor of Newport Beach, which is a pretty big deal. And we're super grateful. And I really think it's important to shed light on why people do things. And I got some great feedback. We had your predecessor, Joe Stapleton, who was mayor in 2025. So we're coming into 26. The feedback I got from people in Newport, now this isn't for anybody else. This is not a Newport Beach podcast. We'll talk about it because you're the mayor for the next 12 months. But there was incredible feedback about the interview with Joe because people were like, I didn't know anything about him other than what I learned through his, running for city council and what people say about him or had said about him or his platform, but really understanding why people serve and what they are in it for. I think it's super insightful. And for me, growing up in this town and have been here for a very long time, I realized I was just like everybody else. Like, I knew Joe from paddling and the Ben Carlson Foundation and stuff, but I didn't know the backstory. Like, he shared so much information about the path to this role I knew nothing about, and the community said the same thing. And it was really cool to hear how many people were like, oh, I get it. Like, he's a normal guy. He's not a politician. Sometimes people may look like it because you have to run and you're up on the dais. But I'm super inquisitive as to why people do it, because you're putting your neck out there. It's a lot of work. Oftentimes it's thankless. So I think it's an incredible thing to have you here to talk about your path to this role.
And I appreciate that you want to do this and help put the message out there. Certainly people getting their information from next door is not...
No, that's not good? No.
We prefer that you not go there for information on your local council members. Again,
and that's something I had mentioned to you offline. Like, I'm a firm believer in anything. The absence of clear information, people are just going to make up whatever they make up, or they're going to infer or surmise whatever. So by sharing the story of your path to this position, I think people go, okay, I get it now. Totally different than maybe what was portrayed by somebody who was maybe running against you a year or two ago,
Absolutely.
So that's why we're doing it. Yeah. But also, anybody that's that passionate about providing their time and energy and efforts for their community is somebody to celebrate. And also, again, back to the PSA, like, we'll talk about why people should be engaged in their community and volunteer and get out there and engage, because somebody's got to do it.
It's so important, especially locally.
Right.
And by the way, you talked about communication. That's one of the things, my 4 C's, as I'm calling them for this coming year, is the communication piece. It's something that I think we can do so much better at the city, and we need to be more proactive. We need to tell the story, because we tend to let others kind of control the narrative, and oftentimes it's a negative narrative or it's just completely inaccurate, whether it's media, the quote unquote journalists out there who, want to sell newspapers.
Hold on, there's misinformation out there?
I know, it's shocking. I know.
But in a local environment, we should be able to have clear understanding of the people and the platform and accessibility. And I think that's what your 4Cs are really trying to provide, right?
Well, the communication thing and the storytelling, I mean, we're talking about my story and the city's story, but hopefully in this coming year, as we engage a firm to help us do social media posts and kind of identify stakeholders throughout the community, whether it's, the guy who operates the ferry, the guy himself, not just the beaks, but, or the staff member from a public works department who's out cleaning the beach after a 4th of July weekend, and it's, crazy. We just want to tell those stories kind of behind the scenes, in addition to also making sure that we're messaging people about what's going on in the city. Because I think most people we all live busy lives, and, we're not paying attention until something directly impacts us. Something goes in right next door to our house, or, something's happening at our kids' school, or, people get activated. And then sometimes those things become like lifelong journeys for them. But I think people don't necessarily pay attention to who's on my city council, and we tend to pay attention more to the national platform politics than we do at the local level, which is unfortunate because it's just so much more important to your daily life.
100%, right? And you're right, like the news cycle is what it is, and unfortunately, as we all know, like if you click on two things or hover on too long on social media, that becomes your feed, and you think that that's what the reality is, when oftentimes it's not. But again, we're not going to go super deep into politics. I think we're going to go deep into Lauren Kleiman and your platform and your focus and the 4Cs and what you foresee over the next 4 years. But more so, I think the path here is going to be really interesting for everybody, including myself, as to, like, I always wonder, like, how did you get here from where you started? And we'll go back to the Wayback Machine in a bit and talk about that path, because it's always super interesting. Before we do that, as the new mayor, again, thank you and congratulations. You probably had a pretty big night last night, I'm guessing.
At the boat parade?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had our big kickoff, the 117th year of the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade, which is crazy to think about. And actually, this coming year, 2026, is the city's 120th anniversary.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to give you, well, let me ask you, like, knowing that you're the mayor of this historic town, coastal town, and it's evolved a bit. We'll talk more about Newport, but being the mayor of a coastal community, and it's a big, small town. It's really not like, I think oftentimes Newport is so misrepresented in TV and like in reputationally, because it's so like, it's shown a light of what's like very, very new, or like the real estate shows and all this, like it's not real. And I think that's what most people, like my friends in Chicago, that's what they think of Newport. And I'm like, no, come out. I'll show you real Newport, or old Newport, or the way most of us live in Newport. It's not what you see. Like you just don't. So I think, well, let me ask you the question. How does it feel to be mayor of this super cool, interesting, historic town?
I mean, it's pretty incredible. So it's funny, talk about how the city maybe has changed a lot. Ted McGinley was our Grand Marshal last night to kick off the boat parade, and he's a Newport native, and he actually was a lifeguard. He is on the TV show Shrinking, Apple TV, and he was on the Love Boat, and
he's done a lot of things.
Yeah, I was saying, I think I rented Revenge of the Nerds like 100 times from the video store, which was
he was the bad dude, good-looking bad guy, right? In Revenge of the Nerds.
Amazing, but he said it really well, which is, it's an amazing place, and you kind of don't want other people to know about it. And I think people do now know about it. And so I guess I'm one of those people, because I'm a transplant, so it must be sort of blasphemous for some people to see our mayor be someone who's maybe an outsider. But I do bleed Newport Beach blue these days. We decided that we wanted to raise our son here, and I've just been kind of all in ever since. But it's still pretty surreal, to look around, just to believe that we live in an incredible place like this, and then B, that I'm now the mayor of this incredible place.
Well, real quick, to touch on that, Everybody that grew up here or has been here for longer, air quotes, they had the opportunity to run. I mean, your predecessor, Joe, grew up in Arizona and came here with a passion to do what he has done, as have you. So, no, you've earned it. You've 100%. Like, again, anybody that wanted to run could have run or can run or will run. But just because I've been here most of my life, I didn't run, and you did, and you're doing the work, and you've been on all kinds of boards and groups all along the way. So you've definitely earned your path here. But again, we'll talk more about where you grew up and how you ended up as mayor of Newport all along this path. But I do want to say real quick, the Newport Boat Parade is one of those things where, being here as long as I have, it's not that I take it for granted, but I'm like, oh, the traffic's going to be shitty. Oh, I got to go this way to get home. I got to stay off PCH. But for all my friends that have never seen it, or friends that have come from out of town to be part of it, I had friends that went out and paddled in it last night with, Christmas lights all over their boards. They were blown away. Always, it's incredible how amazing it is. And I think it's always been rated in like the top 10 things to do in the holidays in America.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and now people see it, not just in this country, but around the world.
Yeah.
it now gets all kinds of coverage, which
Pretty
is really
neat. 117 years.
Really
and
cool.
that takes us back to the history. We'll talk more about the history a little bit later, because there's there's the new Newport and the old Newport. And when Bill Lobdell was here, Bill has the podcast Newport Beach in the Rearview Mirror, which is my favorite podcast. And he says, he's like, after all of his research of being in media and newspaper forever, being an investigative reporter, he's like, I don't think there's a more, he's like, I think he said, like, other than San Francisco and, maybe parts of LA, he's like, there's not a more interesting, cool history of a town than Newport.
We do
Characters
have a
and
very interesting history, almost kind of a torrid past, but
Yeah.
it's fun.
It is fun
to look back
So
at those things.
If anybody wants to know, like, I'm telling you, it's the best podcast. If you like history, Newport Beach in the Rearview Mirror is rad. It's so good. It is my favorite.
We're trying to pool all of the historical societies to do flashback Fridays of the new year for the 120th anniversary celebration, just to get all of the images. I think I posted one of Ace Hardware.
We go back.
Just fun to see those.
Yeah. Oh, I love the history of this town, from the ocean to it's so cool. But I digress. So we're going to talk about your history for a bit.
You're just not going to let this go.
We'll get there. Well, listen.
But people are really focused on how long they've lived here. In that they start off, whether they send us an email at city council or they come to council chambers to speak at the podium, the very first thing that they say is, I've lived in this city X number of years, 40 years, 70 years, whatever it is. People are proud to be from Newport Beach.
I've been here 55 years, so I need to put that on a plaque somewhere.
You should have started with that.
I've been here for a minute. We moved here when I was a year old. I give my parents 100% of I had nothing to do with it. I got very lucky, right? The Lucky Birth Club. My parents made the move. We'll talk more about our business because it's right here in your district where it all started.
But look what you've done with it.
Look what we've done.
Yeah.
But let's go back to you. We're going to go in the Wayback Machine. We'll go through pretty quick. But again, how you got here from wherever you started is the story I want to look for. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up on the East Coast.
Where?
Long Island.
Oh, we've had a bunch of New York people here.
Really?
Yeah, we had Scott Richards, was slightly choppy. John Wadsworth, who is part of the has done the band a couple times, and he's surf rider Orange County lead. Dan Levine with Waterman, like all from New York, all from one coast to the other.
We're good people.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, I don't still carry the Long Island accent, although my husband and son like to make fun of things I say, like orange and forest, and so.
Does it come out with more drinks?
I'm not a big drinker, so I don't know. Maybe that's why I've been avoiding alcohol.
I'm gonna say I bet that it does. I bet that it does.
So yeah, I grew up on the East Coast. I actually finished high school out in Santa Barbara. My dad decided, California dreams, right? He was like listening to the Beach Boys and eventually gave in and decided that he'd leave New York for greener pastures. He was an asphalt paver and, just crazy stories that he had from working on jobs with like mafia showing up, all the things. He was ready for a different lifestyle. And then I wound up going to Pepperdine all through law school. And then, of course, my whole family moved back to the East Coast and left me here.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. So
Yeah.
when you were growing up, Long Island, had it not been for Dad moving out here,
Are you going to try to make me cry, Oprah?
no, not at all. I'm just curious.
I'm just
I'm
kidding.
always curious how people, like, Dad moved out.
Yeah.
Were you bummed to move? Were you stoked to move? How old were you when you guys moved out here?
it was pretty
Traumatic?
traumatic. Yeah, just this skinny, scrawny New Yorker with very different sense of style, and you move out to Santa Barbara of all places, where I think the style at the moment was Big Dog, if you remember that
Is this
brand.
90s?
This was mid to late 90s. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah,
Wow.
I know.
And so you finished high school there.
Yep.
And what were you into? Like, were you just, what were you doing?
I was a cheerleader.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also at Pepperdine, which I think people who meet me now find really amusing, especially in my council role, because
Why?
I'm pretty tough. And so I think people have a hard time wrapping their head around me, on the sidelines, smiling and cheering. But yeah.
We'll come back to the tough. So what took you to Pepperdine?
So my parents actually insisted that I apply to one West Coast school, and I was intent on going back to the East Coast because I wanted to be back with my East Coast friends.
So at the time, magic wand, where would you have gone to school?
Probably GW. That was kind of my top choice, and a bunch of my friends were.
Is that the one in DC?
Yeah.
George Washington?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I applied to Pepperdine. I actually don't even think that I filled out my own application. I was like, no, I'm not
Mom
going.
totally
I'm not
sandbagged
doing
you.
it, And then we went to tour it, and I was like,
Whoa.
is this a joke? Like, this is a school that people can go to?
Is this a
and
hotel on
yeah.
the beach? Right?
So I fell in love with it, and, wound up just,
Got it. Did you love it?
yeah, I loved everything about it. And then
Okay, you mentioned law school. When did that come into play? When did law come into play?
So of everything that I've done, I think law school made the most sense. Nobody who's ever known me was surprised by that decision,
I heard you say that.
That ball buster
So
mentality.
even though you were, as you said, a scrawny New York-based cheerleader with a different sense of style, you always had this underlying grit or determination, or what was it? Like,
Yeah, for sure. That's a nice way to say it.
got it. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
there's a reasons we're not wearing headphones today, because you were very clear you didn't want to wear them, and so they're over there.
I told
elsewhere.
you, you're getting to experience it firsthand.
Well, listen, there's a podcast that you were on with MC Sangaila. It's called The Porsche Project. I was very fortunate to have MC in here last year, and The Porsche Project is a podcast solely focused on women in law at the highest levels. So she's talking to Supreme Court, state Supreme Court justices, everybody in between, and you were on there. And
yeah,
so
just like here, I'm out of my league.
but I got to listen and learn, and you had said that. You're like, nobody was surprised when you went into law, right? So there's that dichotomy, like cheerleader, big smile, I'll kick your ass, or I'll win, or whatever it is, right? Have you always had that tenacity? Yeah,
Definitely.
in everything?
Yeah.
How does it show itself? If I ask your husband.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna suggest. I'm sure he would give you an earful. I mean, he just knows.
Yeah.
You just kind of get out of the way.
Has that been, okay, so a little deeper. You could take that anywhere, though. You could take that view of the world into business, into whatever, but you went law. Is it because, do you like the argument side? Do you like what is it that said law was, because you can apply that to anything, right? So why law? What was it about law?
So as it turned out, law is obviously an incredible foundation for just about anything, particularly where I now find myself. But I think I just liked sort of the badass nature of, knowing the law and enforcing in the courtroom. And as it, of course, played out, I didn't wind up becoming a courtroom lawyer. And once I got through law school and kind of throughout law school, I was doing most of my internships with entertainment firms and worked at DreamWorks. And that was kind of the path. I thought, okay, I like this. I like the business affairs side. And I wound up doing more transactional law than I envisioned when I went to law school. But then I came full circle, and here I am now using the tools there in a number of different ways.
So I'm guessing you would have been good in courtroom litigation or whatever if you're, I think you even said the ball buster side, but you didn't go that way. Why didn't? Was it just because you ended up at DreamWorks and it took you a different path and you got into the transactional stuff, the business side of it? Or was that a decision at any point not to go down that road?
So when I first got out of law school, I was doing law in motion work. I was making appearances in court. And it's just, I think it was not, as a young attorney, not nearly as sexy as I hoped it would be. And I just kind of lost interest and pivoted. And, you know, when you're that age, you're going for the job that pays you the most and the place that you want to live, that, you know, affords you the lifestyle that you would like. And you just kind of walk through doors as they open.
Got it. And so you're at DreamWorks, so you're living in LA, so you're staying in LA post Pepperdine. When you were in law school, were you still thinking, I want to get back to the East Coast, or were you like, no, I'm West Coast now?
No, I never really had the draw to go back after going through Pepperdine. It wasn't pulling me back. At that point, you know, all of my friends had moved on, and a lot of them weren't actually even in New York anymore. So you kind of disconnect from that and then become a California girl, you know?
So what would be...
So I can listen to East Coast rap and West Coast rap.
We can all do that. You just got to be able to flash the signs. So going back a little bit, in college, in grad school, at Pepperdine, for anybody that's not familiar with Pepperdine, like, where is it? And just a quick overview of like the campus and what you're looking at when you're on campus.
Oh, I mean, it is in the heart of Malibu, an incredible piece of real estate. And when you're at the top of the campus, you can look out over the ocean. I mean, the library has the most insane view. It's a dream.
So that, or back to Long Island winters, right?
Yeah, not
hard
tough.
Right. And the reality is, where you are mayor of now has similar views. You see different islands,
very similar,
but very, very similar.
Yeah.
Right. So okay,
pretty special place also. Yeah.
Both for sure. When you're working, so take us from DreamWorks on. Where do you go?
So I was working at DreamWorks while I was in law school, and I got out of law school. I actually worked for a firm that did a lot of copyright and trademark infringement law, like for surf brands. You know, Quicksilver was one of our clients. And again, it just kind of went from one thing to the next. And I wound up taking a job at a firm doing land use and learning real estate law.
All LA based at the time?
Eventually I left LA and actually moved out to the desert.
Oh.
Yeah. And my husband now.
All beach, no ocean.
I know. So that was a 4-year stint. It was like, you know, country club living, very, very different lifestyle for sure. We were not married at the time, but my husband's job took him out there also. And, you know, it was like this weird chapter of our lives. He was not pleased to be out there. So both of our companies were based here, and then, you know, kind of downsized our way back to the corporate offices and decided we wanted to, like, you know, plant our flag here, and got married, had a child, and it was like, okay, Newport Beach, this is
Got it. And you said that the corporate offices of both your businesses or organizations were here, based here. So that's what brought you into Newport. Had you spent any time here prior to, like when you were in college, post-college, had you spent any time here?
No.
So when you guys first moved here, you were like learning the ropes, and was it the same kind of like, this isn't that dissimilar from Pepperdine, right?
A lot of similarities for sure. My husband's then business partner, still business partner, who actually was our officiant at our wedding, he grew up here. His dad was a sergeant in the Newport Beach police. And so that's kind of where the ties, I think, started. Or, you know, my husband was familiar with Newport. He was like, you know, how about Newport Beach? And I was like, I don't know anything about this. You know, let's go check it out. And of course, their idea of showing us Newport at the time was like, let's go to the Shamrock, you know.
Still there
Me
waiting
and
for you
my
on PCH.
4-inch heels in the sawdust. But
I don't think the sawdust is there anymore, unfortunately. Talk to the lawyers about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawyers, blame them every time.
So just because we started with people like to call into the council or write in the council and tell them how long they've been in town, and I dropped mine. How long have you been here now, just for context?
13 years.
Yeah. So yeah, you're in deep. And not long after that, you started volunteering.
Yeah, pretty much right when we moved here, which was, when my son was born. It was like, okay, this is where it's going to be. So, how do I get involved? How do I make sure that we become part of this community? And I wanted it to be a two-way street, especially because I wasn't from here. So I started to just, kind of poke around. I think the first thing I did was go through the city's CERT program and drag my husband through that. And, which is our community emergency response team program, just for literally, as the name would suggest, being responsive during major emergencies. And then I went through the Citizens Police Academy, and
my wife went through it. It was one of her favorite things she's ever done.
It's hands down.
If Randy comes back in a next life, she'll be a detective. She's known that a long time. She's a PA, but she was like, I want to come back. Like, she loves that. We always talk about, because I usually have like lifeguards, first responders and stuff in here, and they tell the story. If a fire truck goes by, they're like, where are you guys going? What do you got going? I want to go. Randy wants to go.
Does she have the pulse point app?
No,
on her
I don't.
phone?
She might. I don't know. But she wants to. She likes that stuff. I'm I'm going the other way. I'm that guy.
Luckily, we have people who do run in. That's
for sure.
Very,
hallelujah
very
for them.
Fortunate.
All right. So you went through the police academy, the CERT course, and so why were you? You had mentioned it, like getting familiar, want to make sure that you're part of the community, but a lot of people have never done any of those things, especially when they're new to town. A lot of those people that are name dropping or year dropping. I've been here for 45 years. Have you gone through any of these programs? I'm guessing not. So you really wanted to get involved and maybe knowledgeable of at the time. Did you have any insight or foresight that you might get into civic duty like you have?
No, it's funny because the sergeant, she was then an officer, now she's a sergeant, who I did my ride along with in that Citizens Police Academy. I remember her specifically asking me that, like, so, why do you want to go through this program? Do you have any aspirations? And I just laughed out loud. It was like, of course not. Like, that's crazy. Who would do that, And so now when I see her, we reminisce about that conversation.
Is she still with the...
She's still with the
Newport
Beach
fantastic.
Police, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Outstanding. Okay, keep going. Where to go next?
So actually one of my neighbors is, or was at the time, the Kramers. I'm sure you know who they are. Eagle 4, involved in all the hotels and some of the clubs in town. His wife, also a Lauren, was encouraging me to apply. She's like, you should get on planning commission. Corey's on planning commission. I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Obviously, land use attorney, that translates. That's easy. And a lot of the things that I was doing was on the other side, bringing projects to other planning commissions and councils. So it was like, okay, cool. I can definitely use my skills for that and get to see kind of the other side of the application. And I applied and didn't get it. And
really?
At the same time, I had also applied for the aviation committee because they had an opening, and I was like, I don't know anything about aviation, but I'll submit my application. We'll just see.
Why? But that's interesting. You're like, I was going for this, but like, I might as well try that. Like, why the aviation? Like, we have John Wayne Airport. They fly right over my house, 7:00 every morning. Here they come. But why? Like, that's interesting because for someone that's like, I didn't really have any aspirations. I laughed when I was asked, but you're like, I'm signing up. I'm going for city or for the planning commission. I'm going for aviation.
Well, because we knew it was not a shoo-in, right? Like, planning commission is one of the more desirable board and commissions that we have in the city. I think harbor commission is probably the only other one that we have. Well, now, because of the Newport Beach Foundation and our Distinguished Citizen Program, we have a ton of applications for every opening. But historically, those were kind of the most desirable and therefore more competitive and a little more political. And at the time, again, I was not thinking anything political. I just wanted to give back and be part of the city in some way. So the aviation committee was like, I don't know anything about this, but if it's unlikely that I'm going to get this planning commission seat, I'll at least get involved and learn something new. What couldn't be all bad.
Yeah.
And
Well, let me jump because it sounds like something shifted. Because at this point, you're like, oh, I think I want to run. Like, I want to use my skill. Were you still practicing law at the time?
so I had just had my son and was taking a break,
Got
right?
it.
So I was also looking for
A way to fill. And
be productive, which is obviously something I prefer to be. It's very outside the norm.
I don't know if
for
anybody
me
would have picked up on that one.
I know, you're shocked. So it was an opportunity for me, like I said, to kind of learn something new if I didn't get planning commission. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what this aviation committee is all about. And it was an incredible experience, not just getting an education in all things aviation, which, by the way, very technical, and it was really cool to learn all of the moving parts, not just about the airport.
Well, it's also a very big deal if you live in Newport Beach.
It is.
The airport Newport Beach relationship, because we're right under the flight path and FAA control, like it's a big deal. No small feat.
It is. It is the most restrictive settlement agreement, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to see it go away, but we definitely need to make sure we keep that in place and protect the quality of life, because without that curfew and those noise restrictions.
Yeah. Come to my house.
Yeah, you know.
It's funny. When I bought the house that we're in currently, the only thing that was in the disclosures, it was in giant hand, like scribble. Every section that had a disclosure, it was airplanes. Because if you come during the day and it's kind of in between, you're not going to go. But go sit there at 7 a.m. when the curfew's off Monday through Saturday, or come at 10 o'clock at night when the curfew goes on for commercial. Private goes all the time. Like,
and a lot of people don't know that.
I know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You really have to, or when the FedEx ones take off and they're really, really loud, like you really have to pay attention. And I always equate it. It's kind of like having a grandfather clock in your house. Like if you've never stayed there, you're like, well, why is that thing going off every hour? But after you've been there for years, you don't even hear it anymore. Or a train going by. If you live in the Bronx or something. The airplanes are like that to a degree. But when at 7 a.m., when it's one after the other, I mean, that's your alarm clock at my house. 7 a.m.
You don't get used to it. Everyone says, you get used to it.
You get used to it, but it's going to happen every day, and it's still going to wake you up if you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Now, I've been up for 3 hours by then, so it's not a problem for me, but for my kids, they're like, damn airplanes, you know?
Imagine if you didn't have the 7 a.m. Imagine.
Oh, it'd be incredible. So no. To my point, that's why
it's
such an important organization for the city.
So when I got on aviation committee, the FAA had just introduced Next Gen, which was basically kind of the precursor to automation. And so they had consolidated the flight paths, and those who were under the flight path were now getting like 3 times as many flights going directly overhead all day. And people were losing their minds. So I got thrown into the deep end of like, this is what civic engagement looks like. But I was on the side of like the good guys, like we're fighting, you know, I'm part of this committee, and I ended up joining the Airport Working Group Board. They're one of the signatories to the John Wayne Settlement Agreement. When I jumped from the Aviation Committee to Planning Commission, I couldn't keep both. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this because now I'm fully invested, right? Like we need to make sure we're holding everybody accountable here, and that we hold the line on this. So it was actually really cool. And it's now served me well, again, coming full circle.
For sure.
I'm now the chair of the Aviation Committee. And I don't think anyone else in the city, certainly on the council, has that depth of knowledge and understanding, because it's a huge undertaking. The technical understanding of, again, not just the documents, but all of the moving parts of the remain overnights, and, you know, the varying decibels for each aircraft. And, you know, now we're doing the fleet optimization, encouraging the carriers to bring in the quieter engines and cleaner engines, which do make a big difference. I'm sure you know without looking up
100%.
Which carrier.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for that, because for all of us that live in Newport, I mean, and when they expanded, and it kind of, again, I don't want to get super nerdy on it, but it's a super duper important role that you've played. And I'm sure, as you said, it has served you well and serves us well now with your current role as mayor, still on that. You were on planning commission. So while you're on the airport commission, you're still trying to get on planning commission, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so the following year I kind of re-upped. Okay, let's see. I did a year here. I'm still going to stay involved in the airport no matter what, but try again. And, the stars aligned and I was able to get on planning
Now
commission.
you have to run, those are elected positions, right?
They're appointed by the council.
Appointed by the council.
Yeah.
Got it. So you've had to go through, again, we can get back to that too. You've had to be elected, you've had to be appointed. The mayorship is an appointed role from, I don't know if that's the technical term, but it is not an elected role. It is a selection within the council.
Right. Yeah, I guess you could call it an election, but of your peers.
Of your peers, right.
Yeah.
Got
A
it.
lot of people get very confused when you talk about that. Well, I didn't get to vote for the mayor. I want to choose who the mayor is. Yeah, that's not how it works in Newport.
How do you like the running game? How did you like running for city council?
Definitely not my favorite activity. Some, like Joe, it is, I think, a sport he enjoys like none other. Was not my favorite. And getting through, especially running against an incumbent and, dealing with others controlling the narrative like we've talked about, very uncomfortable with a lot of conversations in our household of like, oh my God, what did we do?
Well, one of the things that I think about, and it's super important, like when people are, and again, back to the PSA, like I think it's super rad to hear all this because this talks about someone that didn't have aspirations to where you are today, like getting involved because it's important to get involved and learn about your community and be an active player. And then it's grown. But once you get to that point where you get to the election side of things and it's not just appointments or, man, you're putting your neck
real.
out there.
Yeah.
And these days with being so polarized and so gross and obnoxious, like you have to have thick skin. Your family has to be willing to play along. And granted, in a smaller town like this, it's not as gross, again, as it is, or scary as it can be in certain roles. But I'm sure it's not easy. And I'm sure it was a family, like, your husband sit down and go, okay, like, honey, are you going to back this? Like, are you okay if I commit to this? And I'm guessing that's been the case recently with becoming mayor. When Joe was here, he's like, he shared a quote with me and I'll probably butcher it, but it was along the lines of, if you're going to suck, at least show up, because I was like, Joe, how do you go to so many? He's like, I do 3 things every night. He's like, we just committed that for this year, I'm going to play all out. I'm guessing you've had to make that same decision with your husband. Like, honey, we got a lot. We're going to be busy. And your son.
Yeah, they have to be all in with me. I mean, they're already all in. Even if I'm present, I'm also thinking about the city. So we have a lot of dinner time conversations about what's going on in the city. My son knows all the players and, who does what and who likes who and who doesn't.
Interesting.
So they get an earful, whether they like it or not. And I think some days they don't mind it. Other days, they'd like their mom or their wife back. But yeah, this year in particular, everyone understands
Pedal
there are
to the
going to
metal.
be sacrifices made all around.
Well,
and it's a sprint.
Thanks to you and thanks to them. Because again, that's a decision made for the betterment of the community. This is not something you're getting paid a lot of money for.
Yeah, don't do it for the money. That's
like for all
sure.
of these things that you've been doing, this is for, again, people would say, oh, you're doing it for whatever reasons, but why are you doing all of this?
So it's interesting when I made the decision to run, sort of leading up to that, you want to go back in the time machine. My husband's family has this tradition where the boys go on a trip with their dad, like one-on-one, around 8 years old. So COVID delayed that a little bit. They wound up going to Switzerland. And while they were there, I went
You did
to
it all while they
Sedona.
were gone.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, while you were gone, no. I went to Sedona and went on this retreat, was trying to kind of figure out, what's the next chapter, and was still on planning commission. I think at that point I was the chair of the planning commission. So, feeling still really good about my civic engagement and giving back and on the Newport Beach Foundation and involved in my son's school. And so, checking that box, but still kind of feeling like maybe there's something else that I should be doing. And it was a couple months later, people started asking me, hey, would you run? And people had asked me in the past if I would run, and again, laughed every time, I think.
This is city council.
It's city council, yeah.
And at the time, you'd been on planning commission. I think you ended up being on planning commission like six
and a half
years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had said no every time without hesitation. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No way. And then this cycle, people started asking, and I just was like, I don't know. And this was post-pandemic, so very eye-opening time, I think, for everyone. But seeing the contrast between, for example, my friends that I had gone to Pepperdine with or, worked with that were still in LA, their lives versus my life and the lives of those around me here.
Are you comparing Newport to LA? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just night and
the
day.
Environment. Got it.
And all because of the decisions that were made at the local level.
I see.
So I think we sat down as a family. My husband was like, well, do you really want to do this to your family? What about us kind of thing? And we just came up with a million reasons why it was a terrible idea, obviously I'm not going to do this.
However.
And yet I just couldn't talk myself out of it. I was like, no, I think I have to do this.
Did you have momentum? Was that part of it? You're like, okay, I've spent all this time here. I see how it works. Was it you're like, listen, my dad used to do a ton of board service. And I remember him saying I'm like, Dad, do you love that board? And he's like, I don't love it, but somebody needs to do it. And I can do it really well. And I don't see anybody else stepping into that or stepping up to do it. Like it wasn't an obligation, but it was his knowledge that he could do a very good job at it.
Yeah, I think I had kind of an inner knowing of if I do this, obviously you're picking up that I don't do anything halfway, right? So I know I'm going to throw myself completely into it. And I think that was part of it was, hey, if we're going to hold the line in Newport, not just airport, but just our quality of life across the board. And if, God forbid, there's ever another pandemic or some scenario where we need leadership to make decisions on our behalf and protect that quality of life, the reason that all of us choose to live here, then I at least feel like I'm capable of doing that job and making those decisions and standing strong. So I think those were all of the reasons that I was like, I have to do it. I know that if I don't try, at least, right, it was an uphill battle. It wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. I don't think there was a single person, except for, I will say, Noah Blum, who thought I could actually win.
And he's now our mayor pro tem, right?
He is, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if I understand, a big catalyst moment or catalyst situation was watching the different ways that the communities of Newport Beach and your friends in LA, how those communities reacted, quality of life changes as a result. Like COVID really helped catalyze your understanding and your desire to ensure that we keep this quality of life going based on what you were seeing or hearing about. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, and I think looking back on it, right, at the time you're just dealing with what's in front of you, but looking back, I think the universe was sort of paving the way, and I didn't know it at the time. And then kind of all the pieces came together and it was like, oh, I'm doing this, and now I feel really good, obviously, about my decision because I feel like I've been very productive and been able to get a lot of the things done that I have come in to do and then some. And so every day it's like all in,
Yeah. Well,
this morning I woke up at 4 a.m. I'm obsessing over, which is
over this. Oh, I so appreciate that.
This too. Yeah. Put it on the list.
Again, it's the very beginning of your mayorship. Any imposter syndrome? Or you're like, well, no, Mark, I'm way beyond that. I've been doing this now for a dozen years, right? Is there any? You can deny it. It doesn't, I'm just curious. I have it all the time.
No, I think as I said before, the biggest thing for me as someone who could be perceived as an outsider is just, right, that I'm not homegrown, that somebody would have felt like they grew up here and can fully represent the community because they grew up here, versus someone who comes in and maybe the fear of, like, there's always fear of change. Everything that we do, there's fear of change. Every decision that's made, every rooftop that's built, every hotel, every new business, it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with this? So I think there's probably a perception in the community of, hey, here's this person who's not one of us, who's now our mayor, and like she just wants to change the city, which is not true. I mean, obviously, I moved here. We decided to raise our family here because of the community that it is, not because of some different thing that we imagine it could be.
What was Joe Stapleton, your prior mayor? What was his platform? What was his slogan?
When he ran?
Yeah, or I kind of threw out his
when he ran, it was Keep Newport.
Yeah, that's the one I was actually looking for.
Oh,
was there
yeah.
something else?
Well, I think his mayoral theme was Celebrate Newport.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And he did a great job of it. Do you have a mantra? Do you have a theme?
I am anti-theme. So I just have my agenda, right? My priorities for the year. Like I told you, I've packaged them into the 4 C's, the communication, the connectivity, customer service, and of course, our commitment to public safety. And remind me halfway through, I got to switch so I don't.
For sure. I love that, by the way. That's
play
awesome.
favorites
If
with
you
our
can't
public
see,
safety.
so you've got your Newport Police Department.
Beach Police.
Newport Fire
and lifeguard.
I had called her out before. I was like, "Where's your lifeguard?" And she's like, "It's right here."
It's right
I missed
there.
it. I like the collab, right? Not that it's one falls under the other. Our public servants are the best.
They really
Hallelujah.
are. And by the way, if I did nothing else in the time that I was on this council but support our public safety agencies, and I don't just mean, be out in the community saying, yeah, we've got to support our police and fire, but actually telling their stories, which I try to do through my newsletters, just highlight the individuals in the departments who are doing the work and their incredible stories, like you're doing with your podcast, and making sure that they're fully supported within their departments. Like our police department, needed a strong leader. They now have an amazing chief, Dave Miner, if you've met him, and the tools and all of the things that make sure that they have all the wrap around services and support, make sure that they get home safely to their families. So.
Hallelujah. Well, I know that brings us right into, I know one of the platforms, and again, I don't want to go, this is not that it's pure Newport, but the theme, I know you're not themes, we'll call it platform. One of the things that falls under your 4 C's and something that you've been very passionate about as a community member that's been very clear has been public safety. Do you want to talk about public safety and why and how? Like, what is it that you guys have done or you've done? What's been your focus on that and why?
So again, I think the biggest thing was...
Speaking of which,
right on cue.
Newport's best.
See, this is why you need the headphones, so you can't hear that.
I love that. Thank you.
Right on cue. Right on cue.
I paid them to come do that right now.
Somewhere your wife is chasing that.
She would be. Randy would definitely be chasing them right now. Where do you guys
unit.
go? What do you got going?
So mostly our departments are running themselves, right? They don't necessarily need council members out there patting them on the back. But I think I came in at a time where there was a lot of transition. Our outgoing police chief, John Lewis, who everyone loved, again, just transitions across the board in a number of roles. So now with a new police chief, which was critical, it was like, we need somebody who the department can really get behind and say, okay, that's our guy. And, we'll follow him into battle if that's what we need to do. And someone who can make strong decisions and, be very clear about what needs to get done. So that's been tremendous. Our fire chief, Jeff Boyles, has been with the fire department forever, and he's beloved. And, we're lucky. We'll probably get a few more years out of him before he retires. But our people, I think, need the most support. We saw a lot of that support come forward without having to do a whole lot after the LA fires, and it was kind of top of mind for people really wanting to thank. And we had several groups of our firefighters who went to the LA fires and supported in a number of different ways, which was incredible. And then, of course, hearing their stories. I just think there's so much more kind of attaching to the human factor and not just, we love our public safety, really going to them and working closely with the people of the department and saying, what do you need? How can we support you? What are the tools? What are the things that are going to make you? And of course, not the least of which is making sure that they're compensated appropriately, which others might have different opinions about, but that was one thing we were able to correct in this last year, the last cycle.
Yeah, awesome work. I mean, thank you for the commitment to them, because as a long-term resident, I mean, I've watched the ebbs and flow of safety in our community, and like so many communities, the last few years, there's been this, maybe not a spike in overall numbers, but there's been some, even here in Newport, there's been examples of illegal situations, of thefts, of burglaries, of home break-ins. And my neighborhood was going crazy for a while, and it's really cracked down. I know you've been very, very driven behind the scenes to ensure public safety, community safety in town. So thank you for that. I don't think anybody can argue that. Is, again, you can't be one of the best cities in America if people don't feel safe in their homes, right?
Of course, yeah. And all of those obviously trend in different areas at any given time. Our numbers are actually down. Of course, if something is spiking in your community, in your neighborhood, it feels like crime is up, and people always, want to say, oh my God, this is it. Unfortunately, it happens. No community is immune from those things, but we do add a number of layers. Like I'm sure Joe talked about our real-time crime center, crime information center, that has a number of tools. We've got the flock safety, the license plate reading cameras that we've blanketed the city with, and Fusus, which we're going to be rolling out, which essentially...
What's this?
It's a technology called Fusus that allows our police department to have access to private property cameras. So if you've got a business or a large, property, and you've got a number of cameras on there, and you give permission, you have to opt in so that the police department can then utilize that camera in the event of some scenario. Yeah, when and you can set those permissions to limit it to certain types of things, so that it's not just they can log into your camera at any given time and see what's going on your property. Most people, I think, are more than happy to give the police department their access, and they're happy to do so. But those are all tools that help them do their jobs. But kind of back to what I was saying before, it's not the people side of it. Of course, we want to make sure that they have these tools, but we also want to make sure that they're individually supported. Yeah,
got it. Listen, I'm going to get back to a second. I'd like to get back to your city council area that you are that you both live and kind of oversee, whatever term I'm looking for. But before I do that, on the mayor's side, we're at the very beginning, and I know you've had a lot of time to think about it, and I'm sure behind the scenes there's lots of dialogue. But if we were to sit here a year from now, you've just completed your year as mayor of Newport Beach, like, what do you hope we would be talking? Like, what would be something to make you super proud? Like, if you can reflect on, hey, we accomplished everything I wanted, like, what would that year look like to you?
Well, in a perfect world, my 4 C's will have rolled out perfectly, which of course never happens, especially in government. But I think we've laid a lot of the groundwork to get them as much across the finish line as we can in the coming months. So the communication one, we kind of talked about the storytelling pieces, and actually a big part of that is going to be the public safety side, using body-worn camera footage to help tell the community what our police are doing, because obviously Newport Beach, we're lucky that we have a community that is so supportive of our police department.
Big
Not
time.
every community, obviously, especially in this day and age, is that way. We have a community that likes to know that they're doing their job and they like to see it. So we have this tool at our disposal. They're all wearing body cams at all times, and then there's dash cams and others. So trying to, again, work with an outside agency to help us cull through that and figure out which stories are the most compelling. So not just to tell our residents, hey, this is what your police department is doing, but also tell other people who might be thinking they want to come to this.
Be a very strong deterrent.
Exactly.
Don't come to pick somewhere else if you're going to pick somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen Todd Spitzer with his billboards. We've seen other cities like Seal Beach has done an incredible job, with their Don't Steal and Steal. Some of their videos have gone viral. And I think that helps everybody, like they're telling the story and people are watching those videos and understanding, oh, okay, wait, Prop 36, now this is, I thought I could steal and get away with it indefinitely. Turns out that's not the case. So that helps in Seal Beach, but it also helps the rest of us. And I think if we do the same, hopefully it'll help in Newport and help our neighbors also. So that's a big piece of it. Again, proactively communicating with residents about what's going on in the city before they have to ask. So what I find is when something is controversial, again, people will turn to a variety of platforms, or somebody will post about it, and it's usually misinformation, or it's something that kind of, got out of hand, and we are now on the defensive, and it's very difficult to try to explain rather than being out in front of it and saying, this is what's happening and this is what we're doing. A great example of that is the farmers market in CDM. The city went out to RFP. The same operator had been there for 30 years. And so he had an audience each week, captive audience, to kind of spin whatever narrative. And so every week we would get emails from people saying, save the farmers market. And it was like, the farmers market's not going away. It doesn't need to be saved. We're just going out to bid, and he's welcome to bid as well, which he did. And so it's just things like that unnecessarily get the community kind of whipped up and not feeling good about their city, rather than, on the one hand, like I said, telling positive stories that help people feel great about the city that they already love, and then also doing a better job of reaching people wherever they are, wherever they get their news, so that they're like, oh, okay, hey, I understand this is what's going on in the city, and they know where to go to find information, because I hear that a lot too. Like, well, I heard this is going on, and it's like, well, no, that's not accurate. Well, I don't know, where do I go to get information? So we're going to be working a lot on that, and we've got a new public information officer coming in, and they're in the final stages of interviewing for that. Our existing PIO retired at the end of this year, or is retiring, I guess. We're basically at the end.
We're just about there.
Yeah. So that's the communication piece. And then the connectivity piece is cellular service. I don't know if you've experienced it. It's not so bad.
Go to East Bluff.
Yeah.
Again, we're very Newport right now, but if you go to East Bluff and try to go to Starbucks and get your app to open, it will spin forever.
Yeah, there are a number of pockets throughout the city that just have no connection. I mean, like you're saying. It's
everybody goes, how are we here in 2025, 26 without good cell service everywhere?
And the answer is because we're Newport, and because nobody wants A, a cell tower next to the house, or B, a cell tower blocking their view or impairing their view in some way. So, there are third world countries that have better because they can just erect a tower and, no one's going to complain about it, or if they do, no one cares, right? So
you're just going to put it on your roof for your community, right?
Honestly, it's been an issue in my community in Corona Del Mar as well. So we've been meeting with the main three carriers, trying to figure out what the barriers are. And of course, not surprisingly, our policies have been a big hurdle for them, because they've been intentionally restrictive. In years past, people didn't want this infrastructure. So we made our policies reflect that. So it was harder for carriers to come in and add some kind of infrastructure. So we're working
Getting there.
through all of that and identifying places in the city that are not adjacent to residential areas where we can say, hey, you know, we'll work with you here. You can put a small cell site. You can do a macro site. All these things that you get in education. Right. And so that's the connectivity piece. And then the customer service, I think, speaks for itself. You know, whether you're applying for a permit or, you know, you're just...
Hold on. Is there a challenge there? Getting permits through building and planning, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Have you done a remodel recently?
All the time.
What do I detect there?
Just honest frustration. But it's almost every city.
Of course. But we're Newport.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
We could talk offline about that one for sure.
Well, great. I would love to take your input. But we have to, I think, streamline the process. We have to have a limitation on the number of iterations that people can be put through when they're going through the process, which sounds like you've gone through.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And it's not just limited to development in the city. Again, it's, you know, whether you're calling dispatch or you're calling City Hall because you need to figure out how to pay your water bill, making sure that customer service is what you get, you know, through and through. You're not just passed off. And I think for the most part, we do a very good job of that, but we can always use some additional training and things. And then we've already talked about the last C, the commitment to public safety. And I think I forgot to mention the drones, but you'll see that. And that's like the other hat that I wear as part of the aviation committee. Now we're tackling the advanced air mobility pieces, the drone delivery stuff and the electric vertical takeoff and landing, you know, the Jetson era technology that is coming at us apparently in time for the Olympics. So
super interesting. Well, and again, I think if anybody's listening, regardless of the community you live in, these are the things that your city is dealing with. Now, whether they're dealing with whether it's proactive or reactive or whatever, but there are so many things coming at us at the speed of light with technology, innovation, and also at the flip side of managing aging infrastructure. There's so many things that the cities are navigating. And like you said, like, don't do it for the pay, right? Like you're doing this out of the goodness of your, whatever reason your people do it for. Some, I'm sure it's political, some with aspirations, some just want to do good work in the community. Some just only know one way, which is 100% all in, like you. But thank you to anybody that serves publicly for doing it, because it is I always think of public service and civic responsibility and volunteerism and board service and nonprofit leaders. Like, oftentimes it's thankless. It is a ton of hard work. In your role, you're putting your neck out there. You're having to go through elections. You're having to digest an incredible amount of data and understand it and be able to speak to it publicly when clowns like me invite you onto a podcast or in front of the city or in front of any homeowner associate, whatever it may be. There's a lot of it that is daunting or challenging. I'm hoping, and I'm going to ask you, like, the flip side of that, what's the upside? Like, is it pride? Is it knowing that you're doing good work, that you are making your community better? Like, what do you get out of all the hard work, time, energy, effort you're putting in?
I mean, I think you identified pretty much all of the things, at least for me, the pride of it, the knowing that you're doing the good work. You talked about imposter syndrome. There's always that moment of like, oh my God, what if I can't get things done? Like, people ask me, you know, would you run for higher office? And I'm like, it's hard enough to get things done at the local level in a city where everybody's on the same page. I mean, you still have to deal with staff. You still have outside agencies. You still have all of these moving parts. And it's government, right? So nobody wants to move at the pace that I want to move at, which is like, oh, we need to have done this yesterday. But once you start to see that you can move the needle, that's extremely gratifying. And you can sleep well at night, even though I don't, because I'm always thinking about the next thing. Just knowing, okay, I made the right decision to run. I'm doing the right things, and I I am making things better. I'm improving things for residents in our city. So, yeah, you're going to get the nasty gram here and there. But there are plenty of people who do say thank you in person or via email. That's certainly not why you do it. I think you do get to the point where you have to understand when you're running, which kind of prepares you for when you're in the role, that you can't be doing this to be liked. You have to get really comfortable with the idea that there are going to be people who are not going to like you. They're not going to be happy.
No matter what you do.
Probably.
No matter what the outcome or the goals or the motivation, right?
Yeah. But then there are really incredible things. Like you and I connected at one of the meetings that we did for, I think, the commercial corridor study, which was one of my initiatives for my district, which is Corona Del Mar. And there's no consensus, right? You sat in those meetings, but then you do the mural program, partner with Sherman Gardens, and here you are with two beautiful new murals that everybody is stoked. Right? They are so happy. Yeah. That never happens. There's never anything that I've touched that people are all in agreement on. And that's one that I'm like, wow, who knew? Murals, right? Like one of the residents said, paint on a wall. It makes a huge difference. But yeah, everyone loved it.
And it's still growing. And I'm looking forward. I mean, I'm on the list.
We're looking forward for you.
We're looking forward to that one.
Great.
Let's talk more about Corona Del Mar.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your district. Talk a little bit about it. What is it? Where is it? And why has it been special to you? I'm assuming it has.
Yeah. So all 13 years that we've lived in Newport have been in Corona Del Mar in different neighborhoods. We rented for the first couple of years, kind of try it on in different neighborhoods until we ultimately bought, first next to the Kramers and, now a little bit farther down in Corona Del Mar. But we love everything about it, being by the beach, but also walkable to the village is so special. It's an incredible place. So again, coming back to the idea of I don't want to change it, right? My job is to listen to all of the feedback and different stakeholders and figure out if there are things that we as government can help with, which usually not, but getting out of the way is probably the biggest thing, which is kind of where the commercial corridor study came about and wanting to remove some of the barriers. We were hearing from a lot of the property owners. I mean, you've been the property owner and the tenant, if you will, for years, so it might be a little bit different for you. But for a lot of the properties that change over, they struggle to get good tenants, and then people complain when we have another bank or real estate office. And I love our banks and our real estate offices, both of which have been supportive of our Third Thursdays initiative. But you need a mix to have that synergy, right? So I think we're doing a lot of interesting things for the village. Again, the murals was something that grew out of conversations that were had about once we get government out of the way and remove some of these constraints, what else can we do, putting on kind of more of my resident and pusher hat of like, okay, let's get with certain people who are doers also, which we've been able to accomplish with the Third Thursdays. And then Kirsty from Sherman Gardens also cut from the same fabric was
another
just like
grinder, like ball buster, like she's
was
going.
Like, we're gonna get this done. I was like, this is amazing.
It's been really fun to watch because I've seen, I've been involved in the city for a very long time in different levels, and I've seen all the different people come in. But what you guys have been doing, again, that's how we met at one of these meetings, and I've been going to those meetings for a long time. And Kirsty and what Sherman's doing and their big project. For anybody that's listening and it's gone out like glossed over because we're talking about Corona Del Mar, if you don't know it, it's the Pacific Coast Highway corridor between kind of like Maine, Newport, and then bleeds down towards Laguna on the south. And you've got Big Corona Beach, China Cove, Pirates Cove, and some of the historic areas like the harbor in Newport Beach is the reason the Newport is here. And we just had a 100-year celebration. You want to talk real quickly about the 100-year celebration of the harbor and the Duke?
I'll leave that to you. That's a you specialty
got
area.
It. Well, just for people that surf or have interest in the ocean, the Newport Beach Harbor or the harbor mouth before the jetties were put in, now we have the wedge as a result of it, man-made. Big Corona was one of the premier waves in California. And Duke Kahanamoku, who is, Hawaiian royalty, gold medal swimmer from the early 1900s, or I'm sorry, late 1900s, early 1900s, 100 years ago, he would spend a lot of his time at Big Corona surfing, and it was world class. Not for boating, dangerous for boating, world class for surfing. And he and some other guys made a rescue in the 1925. Like a dozen people went overboard in rough seas while they're surfing out in the harbor mouth, and they made this incredible rescue. And there's now a plaque to Duke Kahanamoku celebrating the 100-year anniversary of that giant rescue that he did. So there's this incredible history here.
Yeah.
So again, and there's a lot of that on the Newport Beach and the Rearview Mirror podcast. Incredible. And that's, for me, the history is just really rich and incredible here, and all the characters we talked a little bit about. But it's it's a really interesting dynamic, because you have the highway where people are just trying to get to point A to point B really fast, but the residents want to have a walking district, and there's challenges and struggles and parking and this and that. But our history, my family business history, my dad bought one of his earliest pieces of real estate, had a hardware store in it. I talked about it with my dad in the podcast. And after a year, he bought the business that was in there, and it was called Crown Hardware. Corona del Mar means crown of the sea in Spanish, and Crown Hardware, which is our business, started right here.
Yeah, I love that connection.
The business started in 1949. It's one of the oldest, longest standing businesses in Newport Beach. My dad bought it in 75, and we've been operating it ever since. But it all started right in your district, which is really cool. So thank you for the focus on the district. It's one of the most stunning. Like, if anybody wants to see California like all its glory, go walk Ocean Avenue, Ocean Boulevard above Big Corona.
I know, it has all of the things right in one place.
Yeah.
But to your point, it also has a number of challenges for those same reasons, and that's been the biggest part of that commercial corridor study, is trying to figure out, how do you deal with a major highway going through your village, and people do want it to be walkable, pedestrian friendly. The businesses need that, and you want outdoor dining and wider patios or sidewalks so that people can kind of gather there. We've been tidying up different things that we have control over, but I also think that the community component, like the stakeholders like Sherman Gardens and these other businesses and residents who came together for Third Thursdays, that's the glue. That's how you kind of fill in while these other things work themselves out longer term. It's
like so many communities. It's one of those, there's love-hate relationships in all communities, right? We love Corona del Mar and we all want to walk it, but anybody that relies on that to drive through, you want to be able to drive through at a decent click. If you live in Newport, you love John Wayne Airport, but you also hate it if it's flying over your house. Like, it's just one of those, like, there's a give take, and you have to find that happy medium where everybody wins and nobody loses, and that's your job, Miss Mayor. But it's a hard one, right? Hard to find that happy place.
Every single thing is a balance. Every decision, everything you look at. Yeah. But we also have the people who live on ocean deal with all of the impacts of, more and more beachgoers. I think what we saw during the pandemic was people were cooped up, and a lot of the state beaches were closed. Newport was open. That was the downside of us. Like, hey, we have a big we're open sign, which was great, but also hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube. So a lot of the residents who live down there are still dealing with the impacts of, like, oh, everyone knows this special little place is here. And so we've done things like, we've got the safety enhancement zone that historically has only been on the peninsula, which was just for the 4th of July, to deal with kind of the things that we've seen happen there over the years. And now we've expanded that to include Corona del Mar and to all of the holiday weekends. So it's triple fines, and it's hopefully a little bit of a deterrent, like, hey, come enjoy our beaches, of course, not our beaches, the beaches.
But
here
are the rules of engagement.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Make sure you're caring for our community the way we would.
Yeah. Well, like so many areas, whether it be mountain or beach towns, whatever, there's social media has been challenging because it's exposed so many rad little areas. Laguna really fights with it. Like
Yep.
all these little nooks and crannies that used to be just locals only really knew about it. Parking's challenging. They're overrun. It's happening everywhere. Hawaii, the mountains, everywhere. It's really unfortunate because you used to be able to go find your little solace, like literally your little pocket. And now those pockets are full of people that, again, they get to come down and enjoy it because they learned about it on social media. But if you got your role is you got to take care of it too. So it's enjoyable for everybody, right? But it's really changed things. And I know it's a big struggle from the city. Just one of the interesting questions I have for you, Lauren, is it started for you down this path of civic duty and volunteerism and public service. And you talked about all the reasons why, just you're inspired to be part of the community and make a difference. You've had to you're now in this political, air quotes, your political sphere. Has it made you any more political? Do you feel like you're political, or do you still feel like you're able to keep that kind of more purist, community member, volunteer?
I don't think of myself as political. I mean, you have to be able to navigate, you have to have the relationships, right, to get things done, which is politics in a way. Like there's politics in an office or at school, there's mom politics, there's politics and everything. So in that way, I guess that's how I would consider myself, quote unquote, political, but I still don't consider myself a politician by any stretch. And you just learn to find the people you can rely on to help get things done. And I now have kind of a contingent of mostly other women electeds around the county who do things very similar to the way I do things. And they're on various regional boards and commissions with me. So, beyond the limits of our city, we need things regionally as well. And, I don't know if I'm on the vice chair of the Orange County Council of Governments, and I just joined the Orange County Transportation Agency board. So, which I was shocked to learn I'm the first person elected in Newport to serve on that board. Sort of a head scratcher to me. But so, I guess from the outside looking in, you might identify that as political, but I just see it as being an advocate for the community. And again, making sure you're collecting those relationships and working across the aisle in a lot of cases to get things done for your community, or, on these boards, obviously I represent other cities, not just Newport.
Yeah. Listen, I think the big question and it's a very common question in here, but when you share all the different roles that you are serving, different boards, different organizations, it's not like they've been very additive. You haven't jettisoned many. I know you had to let go of the planning commission when you took on the city council, but you keep adding and adding. How? And I also know that you're not going to do any of these if you're doing it half-assed. So you're all in on all of them. Is that why you're up at 4 a.m.? How do you do it all and do everything else in your life?
That's a really good question. And maybe if we were doing this at the end of this coming year, I would have a different answer, because maybe I'm going to be completely burned out. I don't know. I think just the way you're doing a million different things at once, you just do it, right? You don't know how to do things any other way. So yeah, I'll get up sometimes and write an article that I'm like, I gotta write this for this community magazine, and I won't be able to sleep unless I do. And it's like, get up, go in the other room, get out the laptop, bang it out, or I'll make notes on my phone about something that some third Thursday theme idea that I have, and who I can contact to help us with that. You just do. But I think also recognizing, kind of back to the are you political question, my number one role is being a mom. I was running late this morning because my son had a late start at school today that was sprung on us last minute. That's going to happen. And the cool thing about me doing this is I always tell people, because you can get so caught up in the couple hundred people, everybody calls it the echo chamber. who are quote unquote involved in things in the city, and you think, oh, everybody thinks this or everybody's concerned about that. And then you go hang out on the Matt Leinart flag football field and nobody knows and nobody cares, No clue. And that's how I like it. Because, you can kind of silo and protect. It's like, over here, I'm still a mom and nobody cares that I'm on city council and they have no idea what's going on in the city. Every once in a while, somebody will ask about something that they care about or, but for the most part.
Got it. So you can still you can still kind of disappear into the community.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. It's a good balance. Because I can see with as many things as you've taken on, like it can be full on, and you're taking, like I said earlier, you have to have a wealth of knowledge to be able to manage all the different things. Again, the amount of content, I think back in my board service, the amount of content that we were expected to not only just read, but know and be able to, regurgitate or pick apart, poke holes in. And you're doing that across all these different things, many of which, like like the airport, like you didn't have a knowledge of that going in, you had to learn. How much of your legal training, not just in the legal side, but like the ability, like what you learned in the process of managing in law and doing research and all that, how has that played into your current life?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about coming full circle. It turns out, a lot of people go to law school with the intention of some kind of political career. Certainly not my intent and was not on my radar at all. But it does really prepare you for a lot of things. The way that they train you to research and write, that has served me so well in all of these positions that I've been in, from aviation committee, now to city council and beyond on these other boards, like becoming a transportation geek with all the OCTA stuff.
Airplane transportation and now the public transportation stuff.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. On the ground and in the air. Kind of cool.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And public works and like working with staff and working with our public servants. Like, that's a lot. Well done. Thank you for that.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot. Is it fun?
It is, actually. Yeah. Most days, right?
Right.
And some days it can be a roller coaster within the day. You start off on a high and then it's like, whew, that day did not go how I thought it would.
But that happens in any aspect of life, right?
Yeah.
Work or otherwise. You had mentioned the other women in other boards or across county lines or city lines. The Newport Beach City Council is now, I think, a female
4-woman majority. Yeah, first time ever.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's the nature of the world. Hallelujah. Does that change the dynamic at all?
I don't think so. Okay. We're 7 people with different backgrounds, different professional lives, different personal lives. You're coming to the table with your own expertise and looking at things through a different lens. I personally don't think gender matters when you're talking about that, but it's definitely a notable change for Newport Beach in particular.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And I'm sure Joe talked a lot about the youth movement in this city. It's definitely impacted by the Newport Beach Foundation and that DCP program. But
I'm sorry, DCP.
The Distinguished Citizen Program, and kind of
developing
future leaders, engaging the young people in the community. There are a lot of people, and Joe will be the first to tell you that when we first started that program, I was like, maybe we'll have 2 or 3 classes and then that well will be dry, and then what do we do? And he was like, I don't think so. I think people, want to get involved. They want to know what's going on in the city. And boy, was he right. It has been every time we have to turn not just a few people away, but a lot of people. We just don't have enough room. And they do. They love learning about all the different departments and what the city does, and then going on to apply for a board or a commission, or in one case, start the fire foundation. So it's been really cool to see. And I initially was like, I'm only going to do this if I can add some different component. I was doing the parent education series because that was interesting to me. I felt like, hey, parents are struggling. I was personally struggling with like the technologies. I didn't want my son to have a phone. He still doesn't have a phone. And, parents needed guidance. There wasn't really one great place to go to. So we were doing those. And then that wound up going to the wayside during COVID. But the rest of the program has lived on. And again, it's just been really cool to see.
Yeah. And so you were a co-founder of that, if I recall, right?
Yeah.
And we don't need to go into it, but for anybody that's interested, it's one of those things that seems like any community could benefit by putting together their local community foundation to build future leaders. Again, if you run a city or a county or a state like a business, you're going to have succession plan, development planning, training, et cetera, to bring that next generation along. And that's what you guys have done beautifully. If somebody wanted to find out more about that, where do they find the foundation?
It'd be foundation.org.
Is that .org?
I don't know if it's .org.
We'll tag it in the notes. I'm also guessing that, so maybe getting close to closing on this, you take this scrawny high school girl out of Long Island, you bring her to California, and a decade or two or three later,
she's still scrawny. But she's still a heavy hitter too.
And when you move, for sure. And when you move to town, you don't know anybody, you get involved at the ground floor and you just put your neck out there to learn about the community, get involved, hopefully make a difference. And who knew? Would you have ever guessed that you would be mayor of any community?
Not in a million years.
Do you think it was Newport? Do you think that you would have ended up doing this wherever you moved? Or do you think it had something to do with where you ended up in Newport Beach?
Oh, it's definitely Newport. I mean, pick the average city. I can't imagine what would compel me to want to run, but this is worth protecting. And again, it was the conversation in my mind of, if I don't, then who will? And who's going to do it the way I do it, as obsessive and as crazy and ball busting as I am, right?
Kudos to you. It's pretty interesting. Like, again, had you moved somewhere else, like what might your life be like if you didn't live in Newport and you weren't in Civic, all these civic roles? Like, do you have any idea what life would be like for you? You'd be ball busting something, right? I just don't know what.
Likely. It's probably better for my husband that I do city council and I have other things to focus on. I don't know. I don't have the kind of time to sit and obsess over that because I have other things I need to obsess over. The what ifs.
Well, I think also, it must be pretty amazing what you've built as far as proximity, who you're surrounded with, the caliber of people, not just in all the different organizations that you're a part of, but the communities that you work in, and like the circle that you've built, I'm guessing is pretty unbelievable based on, again, this Long Island girl moving to the West Coast and figuring out where you're going. And now you're like, again, not just the mayor role, but all the things you've done, like your circle has got to be pretty amazing.
I guess I never stopped to think about it. I just, again, you kind of collect these gems, every time I go to another regional meeting or join another board and make a relationship with another elected somewhere that's like, okay, there's a lot of people who are just kind of warming seats, but I see you and I'm like, I'm tracking. I see what you're doing. Yeah. And you can immediately identify one another. Again, oftentimes they're women, but not always. And I think it's really encouraging to see that, right? Because again, a lot of negativity out there, especially around electeds and politics. But there are a select number of people who are doing the right things and they're doing it for the right reasons. And that's good to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being one of them.
Thank you.
As far as I can tell, I very much appreciate why you're doing and what you're doing. I have to ask you the last question. You didn't see yourself coming to this point. You poo-pooed the thought of city council for a long time and then the mayorship and everything. What do you see happening after the mayor role? Do you see this continuing to grow? Ballbuster, one way to do things, gal?
Again, I haven't gotten that far. I mean, I have to run for another 4-year term. 4 years is a long time, as is the next year. I've got to get through and prove myself as mayor and as a council member doing the right things for the community. So as long as people see the value in that, I'll keep doing it. I don't see myself, as one of these like forever electeds or, somebody who refuses to go home at the end of.
I don't see you being a seat warmer.
No, that's not an option. It's definitely not
Awesome.
an option.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for
you.
sharing the story. It's super compelling and I think very authentic. And I think that's what I really hope that people learn or heard some motivating, inspiring, just thoughts on how to be a value to their community in any way, shape, or form. And it really comes down to getting involved, provide your value, meet really good people, make a difference, but be proactive. Go do something. And when you're busy, you stay out of trouble very often. Lauren, if somebody wanted to find out more about your platform or about you, where would you direct them?
I do have a campaign website, which is laurenfornewport.com, and I am running again, my least favorite part of the gig. So there's a lot of information on there, what we've accomplished. I do have a monthly newsletter that I send out that you can sign up for there. Again, it includes public safety spotlights of the members of our police and fire and lifeguard agencies, and then people can always reach out to me. I read every email and respond to everybody. Hopefully I can help. If I can't, I will find someone who can.
Awesome. Mayor Lauren Kleiman, thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for what you're doing. I very much appreciate all you're bringing to the community and to Corona Mar, but Newport and beyond. Thank you so much. So fun.
Thank you. We'll see you for that mural.
Yeah, for sure.